Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody!
The energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, reppin' both hoods. Rob and CP, keep it fire, misunderstood. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline greens, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. Rob hype on the mic, CP's the fire spark. Together they ignite, voices like the park. Fans drift in jerseys, legacy bold. The Metropolitan story forever told. Turnstile spinning, the crowd floods the gates. This is family, no time for debates. Crack of the Batman, the roar never fades. Queens in the blood, it's how champions are made. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Let fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline gleams, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. 7-line swagger, vibes electric and wild. Mets legacy golden since I was a child. Orange crushed skies, let the battle ignite. Ride for the home team till the last fight.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Amazing Mets pregame show right here on the channel and on X as the New York Mets start their West Coast trip in San Francisco in the Bay Area as Clay Holmes goes against one of the best pitchers in the game right now, Logan Webb. The Giants are a team kind of on the fringe. They're a game back. I believe they're a game back in the wild card. They're 5 games over 500, and this is a team that has a solid lineup, good pitching, and it's a matter of what will the Mets do. Obviously, earlier today, the Mets made their first trade of the deadline, getting lefty Gregory Soto from the Baltimore Orioles for a couple of low-level minor leaguers, and that was an aggressive move that I really, really liked. He's one of the top arms on the market. It gave us another lefty in the bullpen with Soto and Raley, and I think that is huge for a Mets bullpen that really hasn't had 2 lefties consistently that are that good for as long as I can remember. And I think it's so important when you're playing the Phillies or you're playing the guys in the teams in NL East, specifically the Phillies, where they got big-time power lefties that you have to worry about. And, of course, it's always great to have 2 lefties because it gives Mendoza options during a ball game, right? He doesn't have to plan out when he's going to use this one lefty in a game. Now, he can spread that out. He can spread that wealth a little bit, and that is something that Mendoza has not had. And it's going to make him a better manager, right? We can go back and forth on how he uses certain guys, when he uses certain guys, but it gives him options. It helps him out throughout a ball game when matchups come into play. If a lot of these guys are not good against breaking balls or off-speed pitches, probably Raley's your guy. If a part of the lineup that is maybe lefty dominant and has a hard time catching up to high-velocity fastball, Gregory Soto is your guy. And that is something that we just needed, in my opinion. And just think of this bullpen right now, just with the addition of Gregory Soto, right? 7, 8, and 9. The 7th inning can be anywhere from Reed Garrett, Brooks Raley, to Stanek. The 8th inning is Gregory Soto and Edwin Diaz for the 9th. And you can mix and match now because now you got 5 guys, and this is not counting Brazaban, who's been solid this year. Right? From the 6th inning on, you're covered. And that's perfect. And this is where it comes into play, where the Mets pitching really needs just to get through 5 innings right now. And look, I still want this team to guide their pitchers into the 6th. If you can get into the 6th inning on the mound, the Mets have the advantage. And that is where that I think the rotation has been lacking. I do hope that the Mets do acquire starting pitching, at least one And I think it should be a number 3 or better, because anything less than that is pointless, in my opinion. We talk about Mitch Keller, Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, Sandy Alcantara. There's many guys. Edward Cabrera. Many of those guys are 3 at the very least, and that is something I think the Mets need. But I'd rather go in the direction of somebody who can give me innings. That's why I really like Mitch Keller. Mitch Keller has had a solid season. He gives you innings. Merrill Kelly, I think, threw 122 innings this year, if you're going to go that route. Zach Gallen's a little around that mark as well. I think he's just over 105, 106. These guys give you innings, and that is something that I don't know if Sandy Alcantara can do right now, because the Marlins are protecting him, but they're protecting him because they know they're going to trade him. And the team that acquires him, are they going to abuse those innings? And that's including the Mets in that aspect if they're going to trade for Sandy Alcantara. This Gregory Soto move, guys, in my opinion, shows that David Stearns is going to be aggressive. He pinpointed the guy, which I always love. When there's an abundance of guys on the market and you can get value in terms of cost and production, and he pinpointed Gregory Soto, it was an awesome pick, because of the fact that it's a low value cost, prospect wise, and there's so much upside. Now, Gregory Soto in his career has struggled with walks, has struggled with location. He can lose the zone. But, Stanek had that issue last year when he came to the Mets from Houston. It was bad. He couldn't find the strike zone. The Mets helped fix that. Same thing goes for Brazaban. Gregory Soto reminds me of Brazaban, but more talented. I think, Gregory Soto has been a closer, has played in Philadelphia, which I always like, considering the fact that he can deal with that type of fan base, and he's going to deal with similar here. And I like that as well. But I do want to see the Mets do what they did with Brazaban, do what they did with Stanek, and do it to Gregory Soto, because he can get a little erratic and not find the strike zone. So that is always worrisome with somebody who throws so hard that can't find a strike zone, but I'm okay. All right, let's see what we got here in the comments, guys. Our certain said it took a couple of weeks of work out a deal to trade for Soto. Well, yeah, I'm not surprised. What Stearns is probably trying to do, because I'm still shocked that the Mets or anybody got Gregory Soto for not even a top 25 prospect. Now, the updated prospect list for the top 30 is getting updated in certain areas on MLB.com, MLB 100, MLB.com, and others that update their farm system in their top 30. So there's a pretty good chance that maybe one of these guys are going to hit the top 30. But right now that I've seen, they're not in it. So I think it was probably to lower the price of Gregory Soto. I thought he would at least get a top 25 prospect at the very least, even on the lower end of 20 to 25. But Stearns probably tried to, pin it down and lower it a little bit, and he did it, in my opinion. Well, Leah Truman, that has been my biggest concern, right? Last year is understandable, right? We were fighting for a playoff spot. We were kind of hovering and trying to figure things out. We were one of the best teams in baseball since June all the way up to the deadline, and obviously ended up happening the rest of the year. But we were still fighting, right? There was no guarantee this team was going to make the playoffs last year, and it was supposed to be an evaluation year. So I understand why Stearns didn't try to be aggressive. Now, coming into this year, there is a lot of expectation. You are a World Series contender. You're playing, being 15 games over 500, like a World Series contender. You're in first place in the NL East. This is a whole different ball game. And I'm so shocked the Mets got Gregory Soto for basically nothing. I know there was somebody in the live stream earlier about the breaking news with Soto was that oh, Aracena is talented. Yeah, all these guys are talented. They wouldn't have been drafted if they weren't talented. I don't care if a guy just throws 100 miles an hour. Does he have control? Does he have breaking ball pitches? I don't care. The kid's 19 years old. I don't care about a 19-year-old unless he's a phenom who's going to help this team this year or next year. This kid's probably not going to be ready until probably 2028 or 9, if you're lucky. You know, I know, what's his name? The other kid, Cameron Foster, that they traded. He's in AA. Could he help us next year? Probably not. The year after, 2027? Possibly. But you also can't worry about 2026, going into after 2026 season because the CBA is up and there might be a lockout and there might be a work stoppage. So why are we worrying about those years? Do what you can now to win over the next year or two, especially this year, because these type of people, these type of fans who are legit prospect huggers, and if you're talking about Aracena and Foster, about talent and, oh, they aren't nothing, then you're the ultimate prospect hugger, and you can go away. Because I ultimately think you don't want to win, or you want to win by hopes and dreams. And you can't win by hopes and dreams in Major League Baseball. You got to be better. You got to be at least try to get better at the during the trade deadline, better than your other teams that are going to be fighting for a World Series as well, right? You can't get the Philadelphia Phillies getting what you might need and you getting less. You can't do that. Same thing goes for many other players and many other teams. The National League is wide open. The league in general is wide open. The Dodgers are flailing. The Brewers are all of a sudden the best team in baseball. Like, it fluctuates so much that anybody can win this. This is why you got to, when you're a team that is top 5 in baseball, you have to go for it, right? I'm not saying to trade all your top 10 prospects or even 8 out of 10. You don't have to do that. You can trade 3 or 4 of those guys, still have a very good farm system, and guess what? You can get better. So that's where we are right now. Right now, Dwayne, the Tigers are falling, right? They're not playing well. I mean, the Blue Jays are the hottest team in baseball. And yeah, I see the Yankees are beating the Phillies right now. And, you know, it's kind of a bittersweet situation when the Yankees face the Phillies, right? You want the Yankees to beat the Phillies, right? That helps the Mets. But at the same time, it's like, you know, I hope there's like 10 errors in the ball game and both teams look terrible and the Yankees just pull it out at the end on an error from the Phillies, right? You don't want it to be a good game. You want it to be a terribly played game by both sides, and somebody has to win because there's no ties. That's what you hope, right? I don't like the Yankees. I can't stand the Yankees, you know, but ultimately the better thing is for the Phillies to lose. So let's go Yankees in the most bittersweet way possible. Yeah, well, see, you know what? The teams like the Tigers, right? The same thing that goes for the Orioles last year. The Orioles were one of the better teams in baseball. They half-assed their deadline, and guess what happened? They got knocked out very quickly in the playoffs last year. And now they're basically irrelevant. They didn't sign Corbin Burns. They didn't re-sign him. And they were basically nothing. They got no pitching to add to it. And they're a bad team. The Tigers, who finally figured things out, a lot of their top prospects came up. They got really good pitching. They got a combination of veterans and young kids, which is a very good combination. But are they going to use their top prospects? Are they going to use their farm system now while you're one of the better teams in baseball to get better? They probably might need a back-end rotation starter, maybe even a middle rotation guy, just to help out that good pitching in their rotation. Do they need an extra bat? What do they need? You know, they got to get it. And I'm sick and tired, and this includes the Mets. When you have one of the top 5 teams in baseball, there is no excuse, right? I don't want to hear people bitching and moaning at the end of this deadline that we might give up some prospects you might have liked, or even some guys on a major league roster you might have liked. And that goes for, Acuna, Beatty, Vientos, and Mauricio, right? I don't want to hear complaints. If you're going to complain about that, ask yourself this. Did the Mets get better on August 1st? When August 1st happens, the deadline's over. Did the New York Mets get better? That should be your only concern. Not if this guy's going to be good in 2026 or 7. Who cares? If it wins you a World Series, nobody gives a shit. Sorry to say. Does anybody know all the guys we traded away from 83 up until 86 to get that 86 team together? Does anybody remember that? Does anybody care about that? Are we celebrating the 86 team but kind of have a sour taste in our mouth because what others did that we traded guys for to get better players in here? No. Do you think the Dodgers care who they traded last year? No. What about the Braves a couple of years back? No. What about the Rangers? No. Do you think they care about losing Luisano Acuna? Now, Scherzer wasn't a big part of their World Series run and eventually winning it. But do you think they care? No. Why? Because they got a World Series. And at the end of the day, they got the World Series while we got Luisano Acuna, who isn't as advertised. So who won that trade? Not really the Mets, right? Because all we do is have a prospect that barely plays. And maybe, hopefully, Acuna is flipped for something that can help this team. So maybe it works out at the end. But that is the point. A lot of the time, when you trade prospects, the team that gets the proven player usually gets the better deal. It's very rare that you trade, look at the Juan Soto trade, right? The Juan Soto trade helped the Padres, and it also helped the Nationals. That is rare. That is rare. And that is something that you have to think about. It's more often than not, the proven player is going to help your team more than the prospect, and it turns out better for the team that is getting the proven player, right? And I don't think a Javi Baez for PCA is a good trade when your team is not good enough, right? Javier Baez wasn't the missing piece. The Mets weren't one of the best teams in baseball. They weren't very good. Everybody knew that, except for the people running the Mets during that time. And that was what? Zach Scott. So that is the problem. Now, I don't care. If you're worried, if there's a situation where Jet Williams could be in a package to get, whoever it might be, name a person. If it's, I don't care. Name the guy that you want on this team that is a proven player that can really, really help this team tomorrow. But Jet Williams has to be in the deal. If any of you say no, and again, I understand that might be one of your favorite guys and favorite prospects. Completely understandable. But if he ends up on the Pirates or the White Sox, who cares if he becomes an all-star? He ain't going where for at least 4 years because he's very cheap, and those teams aren't going to trade him until this probably second or third year of his fourth year when he gets to that second or third tier of arbitration. And by that time, we might have a CBA lockout. And who knows what that landscape is going to look like. Yeah, explosive. I still don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. I just don't. I don't believe Heyman and Martino when it comes to Suarez, right? If they were so in on this and they were so aware of these things, and Stern says that he was working on this Gregory Soto trade for 2 weeks, why didn't Mr. Heyman or Martino know that? Why didn't they report that? So I don't think they know anything when it comes to the Mets, to be quite honest with you. Martino, we all know, is a shill for the Yankees. He never says anything good about the Mets. Heyman is kind of a hit or miss. But if they're so good at their jobs, why didn't they know this Gregory Soto thing was going down for a while? We didn't hear a thing about the Mets and the Orioles talking about Gregory Soto. Have we heard anything? Did we hear anything? This came out of left field. we heard nothing about Gregory Soto coming to the Mets. We didn't even hear about them talking. We heard about others. We heard about them talking about talk to the Twins. We heard talk about the Pirates, the White Sox, right? So what are we doing here? They can say whatever they want. I said this before. And then, oh, by the way, when it comes to Luis Robert, he's not in the lineup today. And obviously that is because they're probably talking to teams about Luis Robert. And he might get traded in the next day or two because they don't want him to get hurt. And he's been really good since the All-Star break. So we'll see. Again, I don't mind it. I think it's a low-risk, high-reward situation. I don't think it's going to cost you a ton at all. But if David Stearns is pinpointing this guy, then get him. Like, I have no problem, even if I disagree with the move. If David Stearns picks this guy and says, this is the guy I want, I don't care. Go get him. Do what you need to do to get him. Like I said, Gregory Soto was one of the better arms on the market, high leverage arms on the market. If that's who you like, if you think it was going to be obtainable easier than Clase or Bednar or whoever, then Gregory Soto is the guy. I'm fine with that, but get your guy. I don't want you to hesitate to get your guy. And that is where I get frustrated with GMs on my teams, and this goes for every sport. If you want that guy, go get him. Don't make anything stop you. I just don't understand that. So I hope that David Stearns likes a certain guy. If he feels like Luis Robert needs to change the scenery, they think they can help him with whatever needs to be helped, great, get him. He's a very good center fielder. He's looked better at the plate since the All-Star break. And a change of scenery, I think, is going to help him. I think putting him in the clubhouse of a professional clubhouse with leaders on this team, that he ain't going to stray away like he is in Chicago right now, in the South Side. There is no leaders over there. So it's like, the inmates are running the asylum over there. That is not happening here. You come here, you're going to get checked. If you're going to play your games, you're going to get checked by Lindor. You're going to get checked by Marte. Guys that are leaders on the team, Brandon Nimmo, they're going to check you. And then when you're around guys like Lindor, Soto, Alonso, Nimmo, guys like that, you ain't messing around because they're going to check you right in your face. And including Mendoza, who is not afraid to go up to these players and say something when he don't like what he sees. So I like that. I do like that. And I do think the change of scenery is big for Luis Robert. Let's see. Committee says, get a quality starter, please. Yeah, I agree. I think, again, I've said this earlier in the stream. I said that on the Gregory Soto live stream earlier today. Go get a middle of the rotation guy. I need a number 3 or better. I don't want a number 4. I don't want a Paul Blackburn type or anything of that nature. I don't see that helping. Like, yeah, it might help innings-wise, but is this guy going to start in the playoffs? That's what I care about. Is this guy going to start in an NLDS? Is he going to make a start in the NLCS or 2? In a 5-game series, 7-game series, I want to know if he's going to pitch in the playoffs for the Mets. That is what I see as a good starter at the deadline. I don't want a guy who's just going to come here to give us innings to protect everybody that is on an innings limit here, and then we don't see him. He's not even on the playoff roster. Like, what is the point of that? And now the Phillies are up 6-3 because the Yankees suck. Jesus. God, I hate the Yankees. I hate them. I hate them so much. Fucking losers. Sorry. I had to say that. Pisses me off. Screw them. Screw the Yankees. That's why I don't respect them. Right now, who do we trust in the playoffs to start? Peterson, Manaea? Well, yeah, that's the thing, right? And they were talking about it on the fan today as well. How can you trust Kodai Senga on short rest, right? If he's supposed to be so good, if he's so important and so good that you can't trust him to go on the mound on short rest or even on a regular 5 days rest, like there's a strong possibility that he would pitch once in the NLDS. If he has your best stuff, right? And how many people on this stream, I'm not saying you guys, but certain people have saying, oh, Kodai Senga's our ace. Kodai Senga's our ace, especially during the offseason. He's our ace. He's our ace. If he's your ace, then he needs to go 1-5 in the NLDS. There's no exceptions. He can't do that. How many times have we seen in a 7-game series, if the series goes 7, that guy's pitching 1-4-7? Or 1-5 and coming back on short rest in game 7. Happens a lot. There is no chance in hell Kodai Senga is going to pitch on short rest or 3 times in a 7-game series. His ERA is near 5 when he pitches on regular rest and pitches on the 5th day. How you can't do that in the playoffs. So yeah, I expect Kodai Senga to be probably starting game 3 of a series. Like, it's stupid. Not only is he fragile, did we watch him last game? He had 10 days off and he couldn't get past the 4th inning. He pitched 3 innings. Like, that's a problem. How do you have all that time off and completely shit the bed? I've said this for a while. I don't trust Kodai Senga. There is too many things that have to go right for him to even get on the mound. And that's before we see what he does on the mound. I'm not saying this stuff is not good. I'm not saying when everything is working perfectly and he's on, he looks really good. But he's a 5-inning pitcher who needs more days off than anybody else in his rotation. And the Mets have tried every which way to protect him. Ultimately, I think it always hurts this rotation. So I don't like it. I don't trust him. And this is why if I get Kodai Senga to pitch 1 game in every series, I'd be happy. Because I don't trust him on short rest. I don't trust him on regular rest. You can't have 5 days off and pitch on a 6th day when you're in the playoffs. When you're one of our better pitchers, which he is, by the way, but you're not reliable. I'm sorry. You're just not. And I don't trust it. I do not trust it at all. The Mets cater to this guy. He's often injured. He's a soft tissue injury waiting to happen. And, like, if he was getting, like he is all the time, extra days off, this guy needs to go 6+ every outing. Even if you're not pitching well, you need to give us length. What is the point of giving you extra days off if you're not going to give us the length that we need? That's my biggest concern. That is my biggest problem with Kodai Senga, right? Every pitcher is going to have bad starts. So I don't expect him to pitch like, Houdini every single time he pitches. I don't expect that. But what do I expect when he get extra days off is length. You should be throwing 90+ pitches every start and getting your ass into the 6th inning. Or at the very least, if you're having a rough start, give me 5 innings. You can't do that after 10 days and give me 3 innings. That is near embarrassment. So that's why I don't trust Kodai Senga. Why? I think you need Peterson, Manaea plus somebody else. I don't trust Clay Holmes. I don't trust Senga. I like Peterson and Manaea, but we need that other guy. We need a number 3 or better. And again, pick your poison. Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, Mitch Keller, Sandy Alcantara. Guys like that makes this rotation better. I want a guy who can pitch twice in a 7-game series. I want a guy that I know is going to pitch for us in the playoffs. I don't want a Paul Blackburn type who is a fringe playoff roster spot guy just to give us innings during the season, and we're not going to use him in the playoffs. It's pointless. So, yeah, but Marcus, last start was a good sign. I was shocked he got over 80 pitches. I didn't think they were going to do that. I thought they were going to go to like 70, 75 pitches, and he did 80 plus. I like that. So that made me a little more excited about Sean Manaea because he's stretching out his arm a lot more than I thought, quicker than I thought. So that's a good sign. I'm not worried about I'm not worried about innings yet with Sean Manaea. I want that pitch count to ultimately get up to 90, and I do believe his next start he's going to get close to 90. So what I thought they're going to be very careful with him, and he wasn't going to hit that 90 pitch mark until like the first or second week in August. That was where I was like, Jesus, we're going to have this guy go 4 innings, maybe 5 if we're lucky. But because he had over 80 pitches in his last start, makes me think he can get to 90 in his third start coming back from injury. So I like that. Rob about to get traded to Team Stearns. Well, listen, I said it from the beginning. I don't trust David Stearns. I think he's going to half-ass the deadline. Right? That's my opinion. But I left it open-ended, saying that if he does his job and he has a B+ or better deadline, which there should be no reason why he has anything less than a B+ deadline. He has all the tools he needs. He has the money. He has the prospects. So there is no excuse to have anything less than that. I will give him a ton of credit. I left that part open, and I've said it many times. But again, Gregory Soto isn't enough. You can't give me, all I hear now is they're still looking at multiple bullpen arms. Great. Now, I don't think you need 2 more high leverage arms. I mean, you get it. Great. I mean, that just makes it easier for us, to mix and match during the game. But give me some quality relievers. Give me 2 more quality relievers, nothing special. You can give me solid relievers that are probably, I would say, the next tier down. Soto's in that A tier. If you're going to give me B tier guys, I'm fine. That just solidifies a bullpen. I'm fine with that. But I ultimately said you needed 1 high leverage A tier arm. Gregory Soto is that. So that checks it off the list. Now, multiple arms or bullpen arms are still what the Mets are going for. Great. Give me some tier B guys. Check that off. And now let's look at what else do we need? Are we going to get another starter that is a top 3 starter or better? Are we going to get a bat? I still believe the Mets are going to get a bat. If that's Luis Robert, I'm not excited about that. But I understand the vision that Stearns is looking at here with Luis Robert because it's a low risk, high reward situation. Now, I'd rather go another route. I trust a guy like Cedric Mullins more than Luis Robert, but we know the talent from Luis Robert is there, right? I've seen Cedric Mullins. Everybody was, I think the other day, Chris was like, well, Cedric Mullins hasn't been good since, 2021, 2022? Well, Luis Robert, the same thing. So, and I don't think they're going to be that much of a difference when it comes to cost. Because Mullins is a rental, and Luis Robert is probably a rental unless the team takes his club option. So, yeah, you see, I don't like that Bader perfect fit. I think too many people are gonna look at Bader and look at his offensive numbers this year. This is like his best offensive numbers in his career. Do you trust that to be sustainable for the next 2 months into the playoffs? Because if not, we're going to fall into the same thing we did last year where Bader falls off offensively and then Tyrone Taylor is playing in the playoffs in center field. Now, the defense, I'm not worried about because they're both damn good. But if you lose your offense from that center field position and you get Bader and that was your offensive bat, then what are we doing there? Now, Tyrone Taylor came up clutch in the playoffs a couple of times last year. So you think about that, but really, Bader doesn't excite me. I need somebody better than Tyrone Taylor offensively. Bader lost his job last year because he couldn't hit. I know he's doing well this year, but I mean, you got to see past that, in my opinion. Having his best year of his career in his oldest year of his career, I don't trust that at all. And that's a good point. I think it's Truman said that. Yeah, he's playing in the NL Central, right? There's like one good team. So yeah, I agree with that. That could be a strong possibility. Volpe 4 straight games with a home run. Again, that doesn't excite me when it comes to Volpe. He shouldn't be a home run hitter. He's a guy with tremendous amount of speed, and he never hits the ball on the ground. That's not a successful player in my book. You can't bat. What does he bat? 220, 215? I'm sorry, with that speed, you should be batting 260 or higher, putting the ball in play and make your speed be your weapon. So the home runs are cute. And again, I think that's ultimately going to be the problem with the Yankees once again. I know Explosive just brought up, the Volpe and the home run. They're getting a guy that's batting 213 in Ryan McMahon, who is either home run or bust. And that's always been the problem of the Yankees. Now, I think Ryan McMahon is a really good defender, and that's probably what they need more offense. But I kind of think that they should have went for Eugenio Suarez. But again, Cashman, I like how the Yankee fans are kind of like acting like this is such a good move when all they were talking about is Eugenio Suarez. Nobody wanted Ryan McMahon. All of a sudden, he's a great player. It's a great move. It's not. He was better 2 years ago when the Yankees were trying to get him. And ultimately, he didn't get traded. So, I think it's kind of a situation like passing up on a guy who was having better seasons when he was available at the deadline. You didn't do it. And now he's not having as good of a season as he did the last two. And now you get him. Now, again, is he going to be better? Probably, considering the fact that he's in a better lineup than the Rockies. But he also has 16 home runs batting 213 with like 35, 36 RBIs. And he's playing in Colorado. I don't care how bad your team is. You're playing in Colorado. Those numbers should be better. So, easy. I agree. I think he'll be fine with the Yankees. But I don't think ultimately what they need is exactly their problem over the years. What has always been their problem in the playoffs? Offense that is an all or nothing team. They swing for the fences and they strike out. McMahon is basically the definition of home run or strikeout. But I think he'll be fine with the Yankees. I don't think he's going to be what I think Suarez was going to be. But when you're not willing to trade Spencer Jones or Lombard, you're going to get Ryan McMahon. Now, I think it's a few years too late for Ryan McMahon. I think he would have been ultimately better last year for the Yankees or the year before that when they were trying to get him. But I'm not Brian Cashman. And I don't think either of these teams are done. I don't think the Mets are done. I don't think the Yankees are done when it comes to making moves. And Skull, I agree with you. That's what I said. I said he's going to be better defensively than what they had. And that's ultimately what they need. But I ultimately think that in a situation where you have a guy who is a home run or a strikeout, I don't think that helps you in the playoffs because you face better pitching in the playoffs. I think when people talk about, this team leads in home runs. Yeah. Well, the majority of the time they're playing against subpar pitching. When you get to the playoffs, you're facing the best of the best every single day. And that's when you get exposed. So, again, obviously we want the Yankees to win because they're playing the Phillies, right? Both of these teams should play bad. And obviously, ultimately let the Yankees win because it helps the Mets. So, overall with the New York Mets, they start the series in the Bay Area. Obviously, 6 games on the West Coast, San Francisco and San Diego. San Francisco, solid team, not great. They got good pitching. Their offense can be sneaky good. I don't know what we're going to get from Clay Holmes today. I just don't know. I mean, please 5 innings. That would be nice. So we'll see. But I do like the lineup today. You got Nimmo, Lindor, Soto, Alonso, McNeil, Beatty, Alvarez, Mauricio Taylor. It looks so much better when guys are hitting 5 through 7 or 5 through 8, right? McNeil playing well. Beatty's red hot. Alvarez, first couple of games back from coming back from AAA, has looked good. Mauricio has looked better at the plate. Taylor, well, we know about Taylor. But if you can have a 1 through 8 that has been looking good as of late, that's a good sign going on your West Coast trip for 6. Yeah, Pinterest, I know we always play bad in San Francisco, but like you said, hope it's not the case. Hope it's not the case. And you know, Truman, I know a lot of teams are asking for Marte. And again, people are, there's some people on X that don't understand the concept of expiring contracts. People don't want Starlin Marte. Again, why do the Pirates want Starlin Marte? Why do the White Sox want Starlin Marte? Teams that are sellers, why do they want Starlin Marte? I'm going to tell you why. Because there's a pretty good chance that the Mets are going to pay most of the salary, if not all the salary of Starlin Marte in whatever trade to get somebody else in here, like a B-level reliever. Say, why does that team that are sellers want that? They don't care about winning because they're selling. Marte is an expiring contract. Those teams love that because they come off the payroll after this year. So that is something that I don't think Stearns wants to do. I think Starlin Marte is a low-key leader on this team. I think he's very good for this clubhouse. I think he keeps this clubhouse loose. And as much as we talked about how important Iglesias was to the vibe around the clubhouse and keeping the clubhouse loose, even though he was very good with the bat last year and the glove, by the way, I think Marte still provides something with the bat. And also Marte has been very clutch. And both times in the playoffs in 2022 and last year, look at his numbers in the playoffs. They're very good. And I think that matters, in a pinch hit spot, especially when he's older. But I do think he provides that leadership and that loose mentality in the clubhouse. Now, unless you're going to get a solid reliever for Marte, right? He can't just be a throw-in. You can't just get rid of him to get rid of him. You need to get something in return. If a team wants Marte because he's an expiring contract and you get that B-tier reliever, that might be not a great reliever, but a solid reliever for like a sixth-inning guy, maybe a guy that can go multiple innings. If your starter can't go deep, great, I'll do it. But you don't want to mess with the vibes of the clubhouse as well. You don't want to mess with that. And if Marte is a big part of that, be careful what you wish for. Because there was a lot of people last year that did not want Marte on this team. Because last year was the same thing. Teams were asking about Marte. That's a dangerous game to play. Ultimately, Marte helped us in the playoffs. So we got to be careful. Mike says, is Buxton available? I don't know. When they asked Buxton, 2 weeks ago, he doesn't want to leave Minnesota. And he has a no-trade clause. So that's going to be very tough. Now, do I think if Minnesota comes to him and says, listen, we got a very good deal from a team, and it's a solid trade for us, he has to approve it. And he's like, listen, we love you, but this is really going to help our team down the road. This is a really solid get for you. Are you willing to go to Team X? And if he says no, well, the deal is dead. If he says yes, well, great. Now, Buxton, clearly the Mets want Byron Buxton. There's been multiple reports that the Mets have tried and really want Byron Buxton. Now, I'm always concerned about a guy that has career injuries throughout his career. That always concerns me. One wrong turn, one time running the bases and steps the wrong way or slides the wrong way, he's injured. He's ultimately always injured. That concerns me because you're going to have to give up a decent amount for him. Now, in a Byron Buxton deal, the Mets are going to take on that contract. I don't know how many years he has, maybe 3 or 4 more years left on that 7-year deal he signed with Minnesota. So if the Mets take on that contract, that means you're not going to give a ton of value prospect-wise. But what the Mets can do, if the Twins want some prospects, you got to add a guy like Griffin Jacks, maybe even a Joan Duran. Now, if you add one of those guys to the mix, now it's basically a no-brainer if you're the New York Mets. You get your center fielder, even though he can be very much injury prone over the next couple of years. You kind of have your center fielder for the next couple of years, barring injury. And now Drew Gilbert becomes even more expendable. Ryan Clifford becomes more expendable, even though he can play first base. Carson Bench, I know people don't want to trade him, but he comes expendable. Jet Williams, same thing. And that can ultimately help your team even more. So we'll see. I don't think Byron Buxton, and thank you for the super chat, by the way. I don't think Buxton is available, but if Buxton, if the Twins kind of, work their way with him and, talk to him, maybe he changes his mind. But I do, if Buxton becomes available, watch out for the Mets, because Buxton is David Stearns type of guy. He's got power, he's got speed, he's got defense. That's a perfect guy, and he's under control. And I think he's 30 years old, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. Buxton, let's see. He's 31 years old. So, and I think he has, let me just double check for you guys really quickly. 7-year deal that he signed with Minnesota. Yes, he's got after this year, he's got, let's see. He's got 2026, 2027, and 2028. So he'll be 34 years old, which isn't terrible. At just over $15 million per year, which I think is a steal. But again, just I'm looking at his years. 2023 injured, 2022 injured, 2021 injured. 2024 wasn't injured, but really had kind of a down season. This year, he's predominantly been healthy and has a really good season. So you're going to get a guy that's getting older, being your center fielder. You can't have a situation where he turns into Nimmo, where you get him, and obviously Nimmo, you sign him to be a center fielder, and within the same year, he becomes a left fielder. You can't have Byron Buxton all of a sudden not be a center fielder. Now, again, you can DH him and, just put a defensive center fielder out there and you get the bat. But I don't think ultimately that's what you're trading for. You're trading for the full package. You're not trading for a guy that's often injured, can't play center field anymore, and you still got him for 3 more years. Yeah, he could probably be a very good bat, but he's an injury away from not being in your lineup. So I think it's a big risk, but I'm willing to take that risk. Why? Because he's damn talented and can ultimately help this team. And yeah, Committee, I guess he's a small market guy, but how do we know he's not a big market guy? Just because he has a no trade clause and he wants to stay in Minnesota, we don't know what his family situation is. His family might love it there. He might have young kids that love their schools. I know that's silly to think, but it's not just about baseball aspect. I know what we think it should be, but you're ultimately uprooting your family to somewhere around the country that your kids grew up in. So I am not going to fault anybody. Obviously fans are going to say, well, he ultimately doesn't want to win. Okay. Sure. I mean, I think he wants to win, but ultimately it might not just be his only decision. Maybe his wife likes it. His kids love it. Doesn't want to take him out of school. I don't know. Like, there could be many reasons. He might love Minnesota that much. I don't know. So he did say he wants to finish his career in Minnesota, but I don't think ultimately, if there's an opportunity for him to win a World Series, and maybe there's a team out there he is willing to go to, maybe he'll accept the trade. But I think it's unlikely. But if he decides he's okay being moved, I think the Mets are going to be very much involved. So, all right, guys. So we got the Mets and Giants tonight. Obviously, the game starts in about 40 minutes or so. This game is starting extremely late. What is it, 10:15? Like, come on. Let's get it together here, guys. 10:15 is ridiculous. I understand 10 o'clock. It's West Coast. 10:15? We can't start at 7:10, 7:05, 7 o'clock. No, it's got to be 7:15 on the West Coast and 10:15 in the East Coast. Come on, that's crazy. Like, I'd be at work. I'm gonna be at work in a few hours. Like, come on. You know, I'm. It's not ultimately about me, but I mean, I'm gonna be listening to it on the radio at work. So cool. I like that part. I get to listen to Howie Rose. Probably Keith Radge is probably on the call today. 3-run home run by the Phils again. Jesus Christ. Is anybody pitching well in that ballpark? Holy Christ. It's so bad. Both of them teams, man. I mean, geez. What is it? Like 12 runs in that game already? I don't even have it on. I'm getting the updates from you guys. But I like the lineup tonight. I think it's a solid lineup. Got one of the better pitchers in the game in Logan Webb. So it's not going to be an easy easy game for the Mets. Clay Holmes. Can you give me 5 innings of solid games? A solid pitching? I guess I'll take it at this point because I don't trust Clay Holmes. I think he's one step away of being in the bullpen if the Mets get a starter. Because if the Mets get a starter, I think Clay Holmes going to the bullpen. And it's got to be a starter, as I've been mentioning, 3 or better. Top 3 in the rotation. If you get that, I think Clay Holmes is going to ultimately find his way in the bullpen. So, and Wolverine, yeah, he kind of went cheapo in the starting rotation. I've complained about it all year. So, but there's nothing you can do now except do what you need to do to get better. Good start by getting Gregory Soto, one of the best high leverage arms on the market. He pinpointed the guy he wanted. He got the guy he wanted. Never have a problem with a guy with that. Even if I disagree with guys he got at the deadline, let's say August 1st, they get multiple guys in a bullpen, they get a bat, and they get a rotation arm. Even if I disagree with some of those moves, he wanted those guys. I ultimately believe David Stern is not just going to get a guy here just to get a guy here. If he's making those moves, he wants that guy here. And ultimately, I respect that, even if I disagree with those moves. So with that said, guys, thank you for tuning into the Amazing Mets pregame show. Giants, Mets, start of a 3-game series in the Bay Area in San Francisco. Enjoy the game, guys. Let's go Mets. And hopefully, I'm not sure if Chris or Zach are doing a post game today, but if they are, hopefully you're spamming those W's in the chat post game, guys. Have a good day. Enjoy the game. Let's go Mets, guys. Have a good night.
Seven train rumble, headed to the field. Orange and blue vibes, the energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, repping both hoods. Rob and CP, keep it fire misunderstood. Cheer 'em all.